fight isn't over. The fight is just beginning.
What's going on, guys? This is Carl with the Racerred channel. Here I am at the starting line. I really like this format. There's 3 people lined up at the start. They did rows of 3, and so I'm in the 3rd row. The first 2 rows have already gone, and we're about to start off the race. There are 4 people in front of me currently, and I will catch 2 of them. Unfortunately, I will blow a gigantic lead during this race. You'll definitely see that. I get in the lead, and I end up getting a really big gap for the lead, but then I get lost once, then I fall over, and then I get really lost a second time, and that's when I lose first place. And it was right at the end of this first lap is when I got lost. So I spend lap 2 of this race catching up, and I almost catch first place in lap 2. If there would have been probably 5 more miles of racing, I could have taken the lead back, but unfortunately I just didn't navigate quite well enough, and this course honestly just was not marked very clearly in a lot of areas, and you'll see that during the video. It's really tough to see a lot of the markings, so it got pretty confusing. But other than that, I had a really good race. The course was really fun. I think they put together a really good course. But yeah, my only complaint is that there just weren't enough course markings. It didn't make it easy at all. You really had to navigate as you were riding, and I ended up not navigating nearly enough, and ended up blowing a huge lead. One of the times I got lost, I was still in the lead after I went back on the track after 2 or 3 minutes of searching for the track, and then I fell over, and then I start back on course, and then there's a moment where you can see all the way down the valley. When I turn around, I still have a huge lead, and I blow it again shortly after that section of the race because I turned the wrong direction. So unfortunately, part of racing is navigating, and if the course is not clearly marked, you really have to be careful about how you navigate, and I was not careful enough during this race. Lots of high-speed sections, but also lots of technical stuff in this race. A lot of really fun racing just in general. I was a big fan of this course this year. The heat was a big hurdle, definitely. It was a really hot time out there. It was almost 90 degrees, and I went through my entire hydration bladder in about, I would say, about 85 miles. I went through the entire thing, so yeah, it was hot. I was definitely overheated, and I just laid in my ambulance when I was done, and I was completely exhausted. But here we're just going through a ravine, and I'm catching the row in front of me here. One of the Unlimited experts is in front of me, and I'm getting into his dust pretty heavy here, and just looking for a good opportunity to make a pass here pretty soon. Going down this ravine, he gets a little bit stuck there. This stuff, as far as this dirt and dust goes, you don't want to stay in it very long. It is very fine, so it will go straight through your air filter if you're not careful, and you don't want to stay right behind somebody for very long. It's just absolutely brutal on a motorcycle. But here I am trying to make a pass on the left, get pushed to the outside, then I went on the inside and did a little bit of inside-outside there, and just stayed barely on course there, just to cut the inside and get around him. I really didn't want to waste any more time trying to get that pass out of the way. And a lot of these ravines are pretty high speed, so it's I mean, I had a lot of fun. The entire race I had a lot of fun, but you got to be careful with the rock when you're going this fast too. There are a lot of boulders in these ravines, so when you're going this fast, you really have to watch for those. Lots of big G outs during this race. There were a lot of those. So you'd be just going full bore down a straightaway, and then you'd have a gigantic G out or a big ravine that you had to either jump or just dip down into and slow down. So I opted to jump a few of them, and I had to really utilize all of my suspension a few times. I just really bottomed out the suspension hard, just because I opted to stay full speed and just launch it over some of the caution or danger areas. But yeah, lots of G outs and lots of jumps in the middle of these really high speed sections of course. Topped out the bike a lot during this race. There were some sections where you could actually top out. But yeah, the dust was very brutal. So there's a big old that was a big danger zone right there that I just decided to launch over, and that was probably one of my bottoms. That really hit pretty hard. But yeah, man, this race was a lot of fun. It was a blast. I got second in my class and fourth overall. I would have had the win so easily had I just stayed on course at least one of the times, but I went off course, way off course, 2 times. So unfortunately, I just blew a gigantic lead. But that's racing, you know. It goes with the territory. You got to stay consistent, and I felt like I had a pretty good race other than that, though. And honestly, it's not like the course was well marked. I mean, I'd be much more frustrated if the course was well marked and I just blew through sections. But you'll see in the video, it's very, very obscure where the trail actually goes. So it's not well marked at all, and maybe that's because of cattle. Sometimes they'll eat course markings, or maybe it was one of the 2 people in front of me smashed into the markings or something, but you never know. Wind can be a factor. Nothing's perfect out here, so it goes with the territory. You gotta make do, and obviously the people behind me, the one guy who passed me, obviously he figured out where the course went, so I needed to do the same thing if I wanted that W. But the bike worked really good. The bike really did work well. I mean, it ran well the entire time. I was riding by myself this whole race. That's the beauty of getting a good start. I only had to pass 2 people. I'm currently 3rd overall and 1st place in class, and so I'm just riding right here, and there's no dust or anything to deal with, so it's really, really nice. But the KTM suspension's handling well, and the power feels really good. The packing material that we put in the exhaust really gives it a good exhaust note as well. It's kind of annoying when you're riding with the packing all blown out of your exhaust, because it really makes things echoey, and it just sounds like it's vibrating. I tried to stay just off to the left or right of the trail, just to make sure I'm not getting cross-rutted. A lot of the time I would just go off to the right or left just to make sure I could keep that speed up without yard sailing my bike, because the thing about these trails out here with the cattle and everything, there's a hard edge on both sides of the trail, so if you're riding above your head, you may get sideways, and things can turn western pretty quickly. You could end up cartwheeling and really ragdolling it. So I didn't have any of that. I just tipped over once, so had a pretty good race overall. I really liked how they sent us down these ravines. As I was going down this ravine the first lap, I took note of a lot of different rocks in the trail, and tried to make sure that I didn't run into those the second lap. So in this video, I'm just going to show the first lap. I feel like it's old news. If I show the second lap, it's just going to be more of the same. So I'm just showing the first lap, and then I'll show a little section of the second lap just to show the events of the race, which would be trying to catch first place. So in the second lap, I'll show how close I got to first place. But other than that, I'm not going to show a whole lot. I think I probably caught first by at least maybe 4 or 5 minutes. I probably made up about 4 or 5 minutes in the lap 2 section of this race. But I was about 12 seconds away from the pass, so... and it's not easy to make a pass, especially on a faster guy, so, I mean, who knows how long it would have taken to get the pass completed, but that's always a difficult thing to do on a fast rider is to get a pass in, and sometimes you gotta really take your time, and with the end of the race coming up and that finish line coming up quick, I would have had my hands full if I had a good, if I caught up to him and I had a good chance at passing him. But here we are going down another ravine, good flowy ravine without too many rocks in the course right here, so you can really let it hang out and get the speeds up. It's amazing to me how fast these corners come up sometimes. A lot of them are a lot sharper than you are ready for, so you really have to hit the brakes, and it gets interesting sometimes in these ravines. But this place is really fun to ride if you're not behind somebody. It makes all the difference not to have a gigantic dust wall in front of you. And your bike, trust me, your bike will not last long here in these conditions. This is Paradise Valley, the MVMX race, and the soil here is just, it's very brutal on a motorcycle. So you don't want to be sucking that into your air filter. Like I said, it'll handle a little bit of it, but if you're going to be riding behind somebody for any length of time, that stuff's going to work through the air filter pretty quickly. Here we're out of the ravine, working our way through the brush, and the stuff's getting a little bit rougher. Some of it's whooped out, and there's some deep silt in a lot of this race. There's a lot of deep silt. Hard to make it through that stuff for sure, but just stay in the power and hope for the best. Try to power your way up through it. I run a old rear tire, so I've been running the same rear tire all season, and so my tire is not the greatest. It doesn't have any sharp edges or anything like that, so it didn't do the greatest in some of those sections where it was really deep silt, but my bike's got plenty of power, so it does good just in general. But here we are going through the sagebrush again, and this place is it's kind of 50-50 whether or not you can go off to the side of the actual course and actually live to tell the tale, because this section right here, if you go off to the side, you're hitting some big sagebrush at high speed and you're probably going to yard sail it. So you don't want to be doing that. You definitely don't want to be ragdolling your bike and your body. But the arm and shoulder have been healing up pretty good. I felt like I could pull on the bike pretty good here during this race, and my right shoulder is the one that got really jacked up. I have partially torn ligaments in my right rotator cuff, so it's a level 1 tear. It's feeling pretty good though. I think once I get it, nice and worked out, and then just start working it more, it'll get better and better. But here we are going down through the sagebrush, and yeah, as you can see, it's a little bit sketchy. Hand guards are definitely essential. But like I said, it's such a beautiful thing not to have dust plumes in front of you, just gigantic dust clouds. I mean, it's not a good time when you're trying to race against a dust wall, and that is limiting your speed. So without anybody in front of me, there's no limit. Well, my only limit to how fast I can go is just me as a rider, so it's really nice to be able to just go for it with nothing in front of me and see how things go. But by this stage of the race, I've gapped second place quite a bit. I've given myself a very comfortable lead, and all I had to do was keep it on 2 wheels and not get lost at this point. And I've already given you the spoiler, so that doesn't happen. I definitely get lost twice, and I fall over once, which that's kind of to be expected. I don't think that was too detrimental. I just kind of tipped over and kept the bike running. It really only costed me maybe 10 seconds, but where it was detrimental was the minutes that I took off both times I got lost. So with the people behind me, I am aware of that while I'm racing, but I'm really just trying to race myself. It's kind of tough to get out of your own head when you are racing, because I know there's only a 30-second gap between me and the other two guys in my class right here. So I know they're if they're the same speed as me, they'll be about 30 seconds back. And 30 seconds is not a hard gap to close. So if they're faster, I knew they'd be right there. But I did take some opportunity to kind of just make sure that I was like just racing myself. As I was going through the course, I just kind of just told myself that a couple times, because I start to focus a little bit on the other riders too much. Like, it's kind of like feeling the footsteps, like feel like somebody's right behind you, but it's not good to do that at all. I just like to focus on what's in front of me and just go as fast as I can, and that works out way better in the end anyways. But lots of opportunity for cheating here for sure. I could have blown a huge amount of corners here, but I stayed on course. This was, like I said, the course markings were very far and few between on most of this course, so you had to really be careful. But so, like, cheating would have been very easy to do just on accident on this one. You could have definitely hit sections and just gone straight. Like right here, I could have taken a hard left and just gone down the canyon here without taking these big swooping sand washes. But the soil's pretty good. One of the riders was noticing that there was a little bit of moisture in the soil if you dug down a little bit, so it must have rained not too long ago. Definitely glad not to be riding in mud in these conditions, so that's one thing. I mean, it's okay if it's dry and dusty as long as there's nobody in front of you, but if it's muddy, that's just brutal in general, unless you're in certain areas. I didn't race the Boxer Bash at Little Gym Cycle Park in Emmett, Idaho. I didn't race that one. I know that I got asked about it, but I didn't show up and race just because of my injury, and that's not a points race. It's not part of the series, so I didn't worry about it too much. But my right shoulder was still bugging me quite a bit when that race was happening, so I just decided not to do it. I hit that little ledge right there going pretty fast. That actually threw me a little sideways. It made my heart jump a little bit. Definitely was a little bit sketched out right there, but these Calatrails, you never know what's going to happen with them. Here we are coming up pretty soon on one of the sections where I get lost, and it's unfortunate, but it's part of racing. Like I said, you got to go fast, and you've got to watch for course markings and navigate. And like I said, there is nothing as far as course markings. There was definitely nothing there to tell me not to go that way. But that said, the guys behind me figured out which way to go, so it's all part of racing. You got to navigate. But very dry conditions. I don't mind that at all. Not too much wind. It was pretty still. One of the obstacles on this course were cows, but here we are. This is the intersection. Obviously no signage. I just take the one that is visibly clear right away. So I took a left since there was nothing blocking that way. So I just assumed automatically to go that way. But ended up being a right-hand turn there. So unfortunate, definitely unfortunate. Eventually I just get back on course. I'm still in first place. That cost me a couple minutes right there. And just getting back on course and getting back up to pace. And trying to forget that I just messed up there. Just getting back to the course and just trying to stay on two wheels and not get too frustrated. It's definitely, when you're racing, it's hard to keep everything in check. You're just trying to focus on what's in front of you and do your best and not get too involved in worrying about emotional stuff that you could be worrying about, like, oh man, I did this or that. Just gotta keep on racing and try to stay focused. But this is a really diverse course. There were some ATV trails, there's some single track, there were sand washes, and there were some washes with some pretty rocky stuff. Big old rutted sections with whoops, so you couldn't get out of the rut, otherwise you would definitely get yourself cross-rutted and all kinds of sideways. And there were a lot of sections with some pretty huge whoops and big sand hills. I mean, it was a pretty diverse course. It was pretty fun. Here I am going down a rutted single track with big whoops, and it has big edges on both sides, so you have to stay straight. Couldn't allow my bike to go off one way or the other on some of this stuff right here because it was pretty, there's a pretty good edge to it. I'm really liking these enduro engineering handguards still. I've crashed a couple times with them. They seem to be holding up pretty good. And they are pretty rigid as well, so I've hit some sagebrush and some bigger stuff with them, and they really do block everything from hitting my levers. I think handguards are definitely essential if you're going to race, especially because you don't want sagebrush or anything hitting your front brake while you're trying to go fast. That would be no fun. You don't want to be cartwheeling. But yeah, I started to really consider while I was on this course, especially after I got lost the second time, I started to really dedicate to memory where those spots were for the second loop, because it was very detrimental to my first lap time, getting lost of course, but I really dedicated that to memory for the second lap. I was like, okay, that's not happening again. I'm not doing that twice, so next time I'll be doing way better at that section. And I didn't. The second lap, I just went right through that stuff, no problem. And part of that is, you know, I'm currently the third rider going through this stuff, so it's not like there's a big trail through it where I can see where other people have gone. Whereas, you know, on most races there's a big trail, so on the second lap of this, I can definitely see where everybody has gone. It makes navigating way easier. There was that hill. You just take a hard left straight out of the ravine from almost a dead stop, and that was actually a pretty difficult climb right there just because it was so loose. Back into some rutted stuff. Pretty brutal when it's all rutted like that. And back into a ravine. I was really liking these flowy ravines. That was a lot of fun. But my legs were holding up pretty decent for a lot of the race, but yeah, I just remember by lap 2 I was feeling pretty spent. This heat really wore on you, even though you have a lot of wind going by and everything. I don't know if the wind is really a benefit when it feels like a hairdryer just blowing straight in your face. Yeah, it was definitely hot. There's a big old sand hill going up this thing. This is one of those things I dedicated to memory, because you can't see where you're going. It's really hard to navigate where the track goes here. But as you watch down this valley, I still have a huge lead. There's no dust at all in that valley. I have probably, I don't even know how big of a lead I have at this point of the race. I have a huge lead. So, still looking very good at this point. I've recovered quite a bit from that last time I got lost, and I've gapped a pretty comfortable lead here, so feeling pretty good at this point. Stopping at this section here. Had no idea where the trail went at this point because I had to ask that guy. There was only like one track going down into that little ravine. This is the ravine where I tip over. Nothing too major, but it was enough to really annoy me. Any time that you fall over, you feel like it takes just ages to get back up, and for me, this one came out of nowhere, so I wasn't ready for it, and I was like, well, I guess I have to get off my bike and try to get this thing back up and going. But yeah, a lot of this course, I felt like there was just I hadn't seen markings in a while, so it was making me nervous, and I would slow down and start looking around like, did I miss something? Or there, like, I mean, I was really worried about getting lost again, and despite that, I got lost again. So But I was really watching for these markings because they're far and few between. Here's my tip over. Just a weird mistake there. Got my leg caught and the front end washed out at the same time. But got up and got going. I mean, that wasn't a lot of time lost. A lot of momentum lost there, but I mean, overall, maybe 10 seconds. But back at it, just hitting some good speed here. And unfortunately, right after that crash there, you'll see coming up, I'm going to get lost again. And this time, the course marking, there's like a Y intersection where you could go left off of the track. So there are no tracks really that go that direction. If you just stay on this track, it would take you to the right. But you have to go off of the track and go on the left ravine. And as far as I could see from the race course, there were no markings up there. I couldn't see anything anyways. But on lap 2, I looked for markings, and there actually was a trail marking, but it was pretty far out there where you could barely see it. So if you were really watching for it, you could see it, but it was a hard one to spot for sure. But I dedicated that to memory. Like on lap 2, I said, there's no way that's happening again, because that was a huge hit. Lots of danger sections here. I was glad that those danger sections were marked, because a lot of those will sneak up on you. If you're going fast, you don't want to hit those, especially for the lower classes. You don't want to hit those with your front end down, that's for sure. So the ones where I decided to hit them, I wheelied so my front end was high and just hit everything with my front wheel down. Like that right there, I decided to hit, going pretty much full speed. And it was a pretty hard hit, but I kept my momentum, and for the sake of going fast, I did it just to keep my speed up. But it's hard on the old body too. Like, it's not just hard on the bike to hit those, but it's hard on the body. Definitely my hands were feeling like they were getting pretty blistered. But I'm actually going the wrong direction right here. I know you can't tell. I couldn't tell. I see no markings telling me to go anywhere else. But there was a marking way off to my left up that ravine, and I just absolutely demolished my first place lead right here. I was so confused. I was like, how did that even happen? It was just terrible. Who knows, but it was way out there. He's already out of the pits right here. He had a pretty huge lead on me after I got lost there. So yeah, you can see he's nowhere to be found in the pits, exiting or entering. So he's got a pretty good lead on me now. And just for the sake of showing stuff, I fast forwarded this just to kind of show how that went. And the start of lap 2, to try to catch up. In fact, I wasn't 100% sure anybody passed me. It took me so long to get back on course from those, from getting lost both those times, that I really wasn't sure what position I was in. I thought maybe I was still in first, but I wasn't sure. But here, I fast forwarded, so I've cut through a lot of the race here, and I'm just showing that I'm getting closer to that dust plume out there. And it was definitely, I was so exhausted after the first lap. I had nothing left. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of show you exactly how close I was to the first place guy in my class. I almost had him. He was right there. I was approximately 12 seconds behind him, as I will show on a third-person video that I got. But here I'm coming in for the finish and right behind first place. So it was a lot of fun. I was pretty happy with the results, even though I did get lost and lose that lead. But that's part of racing, and it's part of the adventure. But man, I was really glad to be done with the race on this one. I really had to earn that one. I was completely spent. It was so hot out there. I was ready to cool down. forgot to turn in my fender card, so I had to have my wife go turn in my fender card for me. And I had to go sit down and rest. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed the race. That was a pretty good one. So I think that's it for this season for the most part. I'm going to be doing some woods riding and woods racing, so should be pretty fun. Catch you on the next one, guys. Peace.